When I turned over the letter handed to me by the mail carrier, it had the name Peach written on it. Peach! I exclaimed without thinking. I rushed back to the living room. Why had I received a letter from Peach now? No point in just thinking about it. I carefully opened the letter. Inside, there were several sheets of stationery. I took out only the stationery, thinking of Peach's face as I read on. To my mother. It detailed the circumstances of how Peach came to be in her current situation. And then, there was this sentence at the end. Please take revenge on my husband for me. That's my final request. Peach. As I finished reading, a tear dropped onto the table. I clenched the letter in my hand, feeling an indescribable sense of frustration. At the same time, I resolved to take revenge on behalf of Peach. Timothy, you were pretending to be a good person. That I didn't realize it was my own fault. So, I'll commend you for deceiving me until just now. But that's where it ends. You made a terrible mistake. I'll make you regret taking my beloved daughter until the end of your life. I bit my lip and reached for my smartphone. My name is Susan Milton. I work as an insurance agent for a major insurance company. I've worked hard for my daughter, Peach. Ever since my husband passed away when we were young. There were many tough times. But thinking of Peach always strangely gave me the strength to persevere. It was just about half a year ago. I heard from Peach that she was getting married. Peach is at that age now. Peach had just turned 24. I was 53 and increasingly feeling my age. But there was no time to rest. Weddings are expensive. Peach's wedding is next month. No time to rest now. I wanted to help pay for the wedding and prepare a celebration. Maybe soon, there would be grandchildren. Despite the hardships, I was incredibly happy. But misfortune often strikes in the midst of happiness. The phone call I received that day was just that. What? Peach. The caller was a police officer. In a somber tone, he informed me that Peach had passed away. I was stunned and dropped my smartphone. Her wedding was so close, how could Peach be gone? Such thoughts raced through my mind. A week later, I unexpectedly received a letter from Peach. Reading that letter, I learned for the first time the circumstances of Peach's death. Peach's letter began with how she met Timothy. I had heard that Peach and Timothy met at the Western-style pastry shop where she worked. Peach always loved baking. Probably because her best friend's family owned a cake shop. She developed an interest after tasting their delicious treats and started baking herself. Setting that aside, after high school, Peach went to a local pastry school. There, she learned professional pastry making and got a job at a renowned chain of pastry shops. Pleased to meet you. I'm Timothy, I'll be guiding you. I'm a bit senior, but feel free to approach me casually. Timothy, a little older, was assigned as Peach's mentor when she joined. Turns out, he was the son of the owner of the pastry shop chain. If Peach got scolded by other seniors, Timothy would always defend her. She's new, no need to be so harsh. Of course, everyone knew Timothy was the owner's son. So no one could really oppose him when he spoke like that. Meanwhile, Peach found Timothy, who defended her, very reliable. Trust developed between them, inevitably turning into romantic feelings. About a year after joining, Timothy confessed his feelings to Peach. That led to them dating and gradually becoming closer. But Peach wasn't just focused on romance. She diligently worked as a pastry chef, following instructions from Timothy and supervisors at work and practicing after hours. Sometimes Timothy would join her practice sessions. This became a significant time for deepening their relationship. By the time they started dating, Peach had become a skilled pastry chef. But, as it turned out, all this was part of Timothy's scheme. Peach realized this after they started dating. Then, a few months ago, Timothy brought up something. Peach, there's a sweets exhibition in 3 months, right? I need to discuss something about that. The sweets exhibition? At the department store downtown? Where popular pastry shops sell their goods, right? Yes, that one. Apparently, there was a vacancy, and our shop was asked to participate suddenly. Timothy spoke with a hint of worry. Peach tilted her head in confusion. Our shop is popular, right? Is there a problem? We need to present a new sweet. And we also have to prepare for the next season's lineup. Peach understood the challenge. It's common for pastry shops to introduce new items each season. For example, sweets for seasonal events like Valentine's Day and Christmas are necessary. With the wedding coming up in 2 months, I can't take on more. So, I was hoping Peach could come up with some good ideas. Timothy brought his hands together in a pleading gesture. Peach let out a small sigh. Can't be helped. I'll bring my recipe notebook tomorrow then. That would be a big help. Just make sure everyone knows the ideas are mine. That was the extent of their conversation that day. However, the next day, an incident occurred. After work, Peach went to the kitchen with her recipe notebook. Sorry to keep you waiting, she said as she entered the kitchen. But Timothy, who was supposed to be there, was absent. Is he still working? Thinking he might be busy as the heir, Peach decided to wait for Timothy. As she was looking through her notebook, she suddenly felt someone behind her. Timothy? Were you working? Peach turned around. But Timothy wasn't there. Oh, Ms. Milton? What are you doing here? It was a man named Sam. He worked for the pastry company, but not as a chef. He handled tasks like accounting, a typical office worker. Seems he had come to lock up. Do you have some business here? Yes. I was supposed to help Timothy with his work. Timothy's. Oh, I see. Sam grinned in a way that seemed to suggest he was thinking of something unpleasant. Peach noticed this and frowned. Suddenly, Sam raised his voice. Even if you're dating the boss's son, we can't overlook that kind of attitude among employees. I'm not. I was just quiet. Don't make excuses. Sam suddenly came closer. Peach instinctively threw her recipe notebook at him. Sam clutched his face and crouched down. At that moment, Timothy arrived. What happened? I heard a loud noise. Peach. Are you okay? Timothy. It's just that. Peach explained what had happened to Timothy. But, in reality, nothing significant had occurred. Peach and Timothy had arranged to meet, and Sam had let his imagination run wild. Peach was annoyed by such strange suspicions. Sam had tried to scold her for it. So you threw the recipe notebook, and Sam ended up like this. Yes. I'm sorry. Peach apologized, bowing her head. Meanwhile, Timothy checked on Sam. The area where the notebook hit was red, but fortunately, there were no serious injuries. I'm reporting this to the president. You'll be fired immediately. That's terrible. Quiet. Be prepared for the consequences. Sam shouted and then quickly left the kitchen. What should we do, Timothy? It's okay. I'll handle it. But, if your father hears about this. She feared they might face opposition to their relationship. Don't worry. I will always protect Peach. Timothy. Leave it to me. Later, this incident reached the president's ears. However, Peach was not reprimanded. Thanks to Timothy's intercession. He had protected her. Peach believed that sincerely. Their relationship grew stronger because of this. But all of this was also part of Timothy's scheme. A few days later, Peach would discover the entire truth. After the kitchen incident, Timothy said to her. I feel bad for Peach, but could you keep quiet about providing the ideas? Why? What's the reason? Because of the Sam incident. On the day of the incident, Timothy was alone in the kitchen. While he was working on a new creation, Sam entered the kitchen. There was an accident during Timothy's work, and cooking equipment hit Sam's face. It seems they decided to go with that story. Reluctantly, Peach agreed. Sorry, Peach. It's really your recipe. I'll return the recipe notebook later. No, it's okay. You went to great lengths to protect me. Well, yeah, we decided to go with that story. Sam agreed too. Timothy seemed to have struggled to keep his story straight. Peach felt very grateful for Timothy's efforts on her behalf. However, a few days later, Peach, staying late for cleanup, was about to leave after changing her clothes. Passing by the office, she heard Timothy's voice. Timothy is still here. Then I should. She thought to say hello and was about to enter. But the words she heard from Timothy made her freeze. That's how it went. Thanks to you, Sam. It worked out well. Sam? What does that mean? Puzzled, Peach listened more intently to Timothy's voice. Soon, she heard Timothy's laughter, followed by his true intentions. Peach is just a convenient tool. Now that I've got her recipes, she's useless. Peach was shocked. I was deceived. She covered her mouth, trying hard not to make a sound. Yet, she couldn't stop her tears from flowing. Those recipes are really good. It's a waste to leave them with her. What followed was Timothy joyfully revealing the harsh truth. He had instructed other seniors to scold Peach. Then he would step in and earn her trust. By inciting Sam, he made Peach feel indebted so she couldn't escape. He was glad to have seized her recipes amidst the chaos. Timothy discussed all this. Furthermore, Timothy added this. If she tries to escape, I'll just confront her with a shocking truth. Timothy grinned wickedly. What does he mean? Peach wondered, but Timothy answered himself. It's about the fraud. She's unaware, but she's already complicit. Timothy chuckled disdainfully. At that moment, Peach's smartphone fell from her pocket. With a clatter, Timothy noticed the phone. She saw him through the gap in the door. I have to escape. But Peach's legs wouldn't move. Soon, Timothy found her. His face was menacing as he looked at Peach. Were you listening? Well, it doesn't matter. If you try to run, I'll just accuse you. Timothy's lips curled into a sinister smile. Peach felt an immense fear at that smile. After that, Peach, unable to escape from Timothy, lived as he dictated. She was also blatantly forced to assist in his fraudulent activities. However, the inherently honest and kind-hearted Peach couldn't endure such a life. Eventually, about a month later, Peach was found on the first floor of her apartment building. No witnesses were present, but a passerby had heard a loud noise. Upon checking, they found Peach lying below her apartment. The police suggested that it was likely Peach herself. Next to her, Timothy's laptop was found, perhaps her attempt to expose his fraud. However, the police found no significant data on the laptop. I had suspected Timothy, with whom she lived, from the moment I heard about the incident. But on that day, Timothy wasn't at home. He was out of town for work. So, Timothy couldn't be the perpetrator. I had to accept this explanation. Afterward, along with Timothy and his parents, we held Peach's funeral. Even after everything ended, I was left in a daze. I couldn't bring myself to do anything. If only my husband were here, maybe I could have felt less lonely. Peach, why? That was all I could mutter. I felt powerless. For days, I wept, thinking this. And a week after Peach's death passed, I had to accept the reality of losing Peach. Just as I began to accept it, a letter arrived. When I turned over the letter handed to me by the mail carrier, it had Peach's name on it. Peach! I exclaimed without thinking. I rushed back to the living room. Why had I received a letter from Peach now? No point in just thinking about it. I carefully opened the letter. Inside were several sheets of stationery. Taking only the stationery, I read on, picturing Peach's face. To my mother. It detailed how Peach came to be in this situation. The truth Peach wrote filled me with boiling anger. Deceit by Timothy, the theft of her recipes. Being forced into fraud, all were meticulously recorded. And then, this sentence was written at the end. Please take revenge on my husband for me. That's my final request. Peach. As I finished reading, a tear dropped onto the table. I clenched the letter, overwhelmed by a sense of helpless anger. At the same time, I resolved to take revenge on behalf of Peach. Timothy, you were pretending to be a good person. I didn't realize it, and that was my mistake. So, I'll give you credit for deceiving me until just now. But it ends here. You made a terrible mistake. You took away my beloved daughter, and I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. I bit my lip and reached for my smartphone. I quickly arranged for a taxi. Peach's letter had an address written on it. It seemed there was something important there. Peach, this is where I should go, right? Clutching the letter, I jumped into the taxi. Heading to the address, which turned out to be a local bank. According to Peach's letter, something was in a safe deposit box. I showed my driver's license and explained the situation to the staff, also showing the card and key for the deposit box. The staff immediately led me to the safe deposit box. Peach had apparently informed them beforehand that I would be coming. In the room, I opened the deposit box. Inside were documents and a notebook. This is? I read quietly. The documents were written by Peach. They detailed the methods and contents of the fraud she couldn't fit in her letter, and the people involved. Also, the notebook was Peach's recipe book, including recipes for products currently sold at Timothy's shop. Peach, you did all this. Even from these alone, Peach's meticulous nature was evident. Thinking of Peach, I found myself in tears. But I couldn't just sit and mourn. I quickly put the documents and notebook into my bag. Then, I noticed some jewelry. It was a heart-shaped pendant with a yellow sticky note attached. You shouldn't have treated it so carelessly, Peach. Muttering, I gently picked up the pendant. Then, the words on the sticky note caught my eye. I was startled at once and gripped the pendant tightly. Peach, I promise to take revenge. Wait for me. With renewed determination, I left the bank. I headed straight to a local cake shop. It was the family business of Peach's best friend, Kate. At the front of the shop, I saw Kate, whom I had met at Peach's funeral. Hello, Kate. Mrs. Milton? About the other day. Kate bowed her head. I nodded in return. I have something I'd like to talk about. Do you have a moment? Sure. Kate glanced back. Then, a man who seemed to be Kate's father nodded. Please, this way. Kate led me to the back of the shop. The back was converted into a living space. I was taken to the living room. Kate served tea and I abruptly started the conversation. Do you see, I received a letter from Peach. From Peach. Kate's eyes widened in surprise. Read it first. We'll talk after that. I handed Peach's letter to Kate, who read it intently and silently. Eventually, Kate, like me, was in tears. After a while, she handed the letter back to me. Thank you. I'll give it back to you now. What do you think? This is unforgivable. I feel the same. Kate clenched her fist, and I felt relieved that she shared my feelings. Then, will you help me? Yes. But, what should I do? You were Peach's best friend, so you know this, right? I took out Peach's recipe notebook that was in the safe deposit box. Kate nodded several times. This was in the safe deposit box, but when I saw the contents of the deposit box, it was as if someone whispered an idea to me. I decided to take it as Peach's wish and turn it into a plan for revenge against Timothy. I shared the details with Kate and entrusted Peach's recipe notebook to her. Can I count on you? For Peach's sake, of course. Kate nodded firmly. That was the first step in my preparation. I felt a bit relieved. Then, I quietly stood up and bowed to Kate. Thank you. I appreciate your help. Saying that, I left Kate's place. I headed to another location. It was a branch of the pastry shop where Peach used to work. The shop was quite far from the one where Peach had worked. I made my way there and asked a woman who seemed to be a part-time worker at the front. Excuse me, is Mr. Sam here? The woman looked puzzled. I added quickly. My daughter used to work in another store, and Mr. Sam was very kind to her. I showed her Peach's employee ID card given to me after the funeral. The woman's expression softened into a smile. Soon, Sam emerged from the back. Seeing my face, he immediately turned pale. He recognized me from the funeral as Peach's mother. Could we talk outside for a moment? Well, if you refuse, you know what will happen, right? I smiled intentionally, which made Sam comply. We moved to a nearby park, and Sam immediately bowed his head. I'm so sorry. I was threatened too. What are you talking about? Before I could say anything more, Sam started spilling everything he had done. He was threatened by Timothy and had no choice but to approach Peach. He hadn't done anything beyond that. All the wrongdoing was Timothy's doing. He never thought Peach would take her own life. Sam apologized to me, crying. Apologies won't bring Peach back. She's not coming home. I couldn't help raising my voice. Sam flinched and fell silent. Realizing I might have gone too far, I took a deep breath. I then looked sternly at Sam and asked him, if you're truly sorry, will you do something for me? Yes. Then testify about this matter. And don't say anything to Timothy. Understood? I pressed him, and Sam nodded fearfully. After that, I made Sam give a full testimony. I recorded everything and had him write a statement confirming his testimony, which he signed. That's the second step. Now, it's up to you, Kate. I muttered softly as I watched Sam trudging back to the store. After a while, I received an invitation from Timothy. The Sweets Exhibition. It was an invitation to the Very Sweets Exhibition. Timothy didn't know I was aware of the truth. So, the invitation brazenly included these words. Peach praised these sweets. Please come for her sake. I almost tore it up in anger. But doing so would ruin all my preparations. I held back and waited for the day of the exhibition. Every day, I watched the calendar. Finally, the first day of the Sweets Exhibition arrived. I headed to the venue with Peach's employee ID on my chest. As I entered, Timothy greeted me. His insincere smile made my skin crawl. Mother-in-law, I'm glad you could come. Yes. Peach was looking forward to it, wasn't she? Yes. I have prepared my masterpiece. He led me to a display of splendid cakes and chocolates. I asked Timothy with a forced smile. Which one did you make? I made the chocolates this time. Valentine's Day is coming up, after all. Timothy pointed to a chocolate display in the center. It was stylishly decorated. But I knew these were made using Peach's recipes. I felt a surge of anger. At that moment, a woman's voice came from behind. "May I interview you?" I turned to see a woman holding a file and a camera, apparently a magazine reporter. The conversation between Timothy and the reporter continued. After a while, the reporter looked puzzled. "Excuse me, are you sure you made these?" Timothy looked confused by her question. Then he arrogantly replied, "Of course." "What are you talking about?" "It's just that I saw similar items at another store." "What?" "Impossible." Timothy raised his voice. Several guests turned to look. The reporter continued. "The explanations and designs are very similar." "That's ridiculous." "Which store is that?" Timothy became increasingly agitated. The reporter, trembling, pointed in the distance. Timothy rushed off, and I quickly followed him. Soon, we reached a certain store. Kate was there at the storefront. She nodded slightly at me. Then she addressed Timothy. "It's been a while. You stole the recipes from our shop." "Stolen?" "There's no way that's true." Kate smiled subtly. On the other hand, Timothy was red-faced and raised his voice. "Then what is this?" "These products are almost identical to ours." He pointed to chocolates displayed in the store, remarkably similar to those in Timothy's shop. Timothy also pointed to a pop-up sign and shouted, "And this? Resistant to melting in warm places? What about this?" "That's our shop's newly developed product." "Don't joke with me. This is exactly the same as my unique method that I developed." The commotion began to draw attention from bystanders. Kate, unfazed, responded, "It's a coincidence. But if it's the same, please stop using it in your shop." "What did you say?" "This recipe uses a patented method developed by my father years ago." "Patented method?" Timothy's face turned pale. The truth was, Peach's recipe used that patented method. However, Peach had no intention of violating the patent because she planned to sell it together with Kate. "This recipe was created by my best friend, Peach, for when we open a shop together." "That's... You're the one who stole Peach's recipe." Timothy fell silent, visibly shifting his gaze. The reporter from earlier asked, "What about it? Did you steal the recipe?" "No, Peach was our employee and she..." Timothy began to stutter his excuses, but nobody believed him. Unable to withstand the surrounding scrutiny, Timothy quickly left the scene. I hurried after him, followed by the reporter. Soon back at his own exhibit space, Timothy started to pack up hurriedly, seemingly trying to act as if nothing had happened. I wouldn't allow that and called out to him. "Wait. We're not done talking. I told you, Peach provided those recipes. What more do you want?" "There's more. It's not just about the recipes, is it?" "What do you mean by a more?" Sweat began to bead on Timothy's forehead. I raised my voice, knowing this was a crucial moment. "Your shop has been evading taxes." "What?" Timothy quickly covered his mouth. The surrounding eyes focused on him. I calmly began detailing his actions. "First, you were keeping separate ledgers for reservation products. And not recording them as sales." "I don't know what you're talking about." "You also falsified inventory records. That's how you've been evading taxes, right?" "I don't know anything about that." Timothy tried to shout over me. At that point, I produced a copy of the documents Peach had compiled. "Peach documented all of your methods in detail. Take a good look at this." I scattered the documents on the spot. Several people rushed over to pick them up. They began comparing the documents and talking among themselves. Soon, the female reporter questioned Timothy. What about this? It seems like their story is true according to these documents. Timothy remained silent in response to her question. Soon, similar voices arose from the other guests. One claimed to be in accounting, saying this was clearly fraudulent and undoubtedly tax evasion. Confronted by these accusations, Timothy finally lost his composure. Shut up. None of your business. I haven't done anything. These documents are no proof. With Timothy's outburst, the venue became eerily silent. Amidst this, I took out my smartphone and played an audio recording. Listen. Record the stock as lower than it is. But that would mean. Don't talk back to me. You can't escape now. Peach and Timothy's voices echoed in the venue. Even distant guests came closer. The recording continued. What about today's reservations? There's no invoice. I destroyed it. It was a cash payment, convenient for manipulating sales. Again? Shut up. If we pay taxes properly, we'll never make a profit. The recording ended with these words from Timothy. I looked up to find Timothy's face ashen. This audio was recorded by the pendant Peach had. It had a voice recorder inside. That heart-shaped one. Yes. It was an IC recorder. Incontestable evidence left by Peach. No. Timothy collapsed. Security guards arrived with police officers. An officer, having heard everything, turned to Timothy. I heard about tax evasion. Is that true? No, it's not. I mean, well, we'll discuss it at the station. Please come with us. The officer gently informed Timothy, but his eyes were far from kind. I handed over Sam's testimony to the officer and explained about Peach's suicide. We'll investigate this as well. The officer looked sternly at Timothy. Timothy, now powerless, couldn't retort. He was arrested for tax evasion and other charges. Peach's case was also thoroughly investigated. While Timothy didn't directly cause her death, he faced charges of injury. Timothy's arrest dealt a significant blow. Within a few months, his father's pastry company went bankrupt. And all the stores closed, including the one where Peach worked. I hope Timothy reflects on his actions. His sentencing is still pending. After Timothy was taken away by the police, Kate arrived and distributed the chocolates to the attendees. These were created by my best friend. She handed them out, saying this to everyone. I wished Peach could have seen the customers enjoying them, especially their smiles. I couldn't help but tear up at the thought. But there was no time to cry. Because the chocolates were decided to be sold at the storefront. I want to name the product Peach. It's made with peaches, and more importantly, it was Peach's idea. Kate spoke with a smile. Then she added, "Could you write the pop-up for this product? I want to display it at the storefront with Peach's photo." Hearing this request, I found myself, for the first time in my life, preparing to create a storefront pop-up. I hope Peach would have liked it too. After speaking to Peach's smiling photo, I reached for a peach-colored pencil.